Hello, my name is Stephanie, and on this channel, I like to talk about my houseplants. If you're a subscriber, welcome back. Hi, I'm so glad you decided to join us today. And if you're one of the 78% of viewers who visit but don't subscribe, I would like to also welcome you back. I see you. In today's video, I'll be doing a house plant tour. I am thrilled to do this video because I've acquired so many new and exciting houseplants since the last time I did this video. So I'm so excited to share them with you. And I'm also eager to get sort of a snapshot of how my plants are doing now at the beginning of the growing season. If you like videos like this, you may want to subscribe to the channel and hang around with us. So before we get started in the video, I want to let you know that I've featured quite a few of my houseplants before in recent videos. So if I've done that and you'd like more information, I will actually put a screenshot here of the thumbnail that you can find more information about this plant. If there's a plant that I don't say much about and you'd like to find out more, please let me know in the comments below, and I will be more than happy to do a video on that plant in the future. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so let's begin the tour right here. So this is my plant wall. It's one of my favorite little spots in the house. It sits right next to this south-facing window. So I've got a big south-facing sliding door here. And so the plants here get a lot of light. And so you may wonder, if it gets a lot of light, why do you have grow lights? Well, this winter was very, very dark and my plants were suffering quite a bit. So these grow lights just helped the plants to hang in there. And as the days get longer, I have these lights on for less and less time. And when we get into the summertime, these get almost direct sunlight coming in at some point in the day. I may not even use these lights at all. So anyways, I got these lights from Amazon and I will have a link for them down below. So let's start over here. If you've seen my plant wall video, you may remember this plant. This is my neon pothos. It's one of my first houseplants that I acquired when I moved into this home. And you know pothos, they're so easy to care for. They're very fast growing. And because it's getting lots and lots of light coming in from this window here, the leaves are very vibrant. And like I've mentioned many times before, yellow is my favorite color. So naturally, I need to have a nice, big, voluminous version of this plant in my home. So yes, I absolutely love it. I almost lost it some time ago because I put it in my north-facing window. You'll see this window in a bit because I have another plant there. And so because of that, I created a bunch of cuttings or propagations, but we'll get to that. So this is my neon pothos. And right next to it, you'll see my Philodendron Brazil hanging down prettily. I recently repotted this plant. So if you remember it from my February favorites video, you will notice that it's in a different pot. And that's because it was getting root bound. It got root bound, I should say, and it needed water very, very frequently. And so because of that, I put it in a brand new pot and gave it some more soil, and hopefully it will grow more beautifully and I will need to water it less. I did take a few cuttings so it does look shorter, and I put it back at the top. So hopefully these will root and I'll have a nice full pot cascading down soon. And over here I have my Rhaphidophora tetrasperma, also called a mini monstera. This plant I love. This was one of my favorite plants when I first started collecting houseplants. This was my favorite houseplant. This angle is a little bit better for you. You can see it better. But over here I have, I'll take it down for you, my Rhaphidophora tetrasperma. I was saying this was one of my favorite houseplants for a long time. And it still is one of my favorite houseplants, but sometimes it can lose leaves and it can be finicky. And that will make it look sort of bare in some spots. But anyways, I almost lost my mother plant some time ago, and I decided to propagate this and put it in water. And as you can see, it loves being in water. It's doing really well. And one of the reasons I put this in water is because I found it very, very hard at times to figure out when to water it. And this is not supposed to be a hard plant, but for some reason, I guess because I exposed it to high amounts of light, it was becoming hard for me. Anyways, I decided to put it in water so it lives in water, and I just top it up every so often. And now it's got a little bit of a scent in there, so I think I need to, next time the water gets really low, I let it only get about this low, and then I top it up. But I think now I need to toss out all the water and fill it up with fresh water. But it seems to be doing very well. It really loves this grow light up here, and so I'm gonna put it back. Since I've put the grow light up here, it's been thriving. It's been doing so much better, and so I'm glad that it's doing well and it's enjoying that little corner. Soon you'll see the mother plant, which doesn't look as happy as this one. Anyways, and then over here on this side, I have a bunch of cuttings. So I had this beautiful, bountiful Marble Queen Pothos. Again, if you've been with me for a while, you remember which plant I'm talking about. And I got a bit ambitious and I pretty much lost the plant. It's a lesson that I learned. I was trying to put a lot of my houseplants purely into water, and it's a lesson that I learned the hard way. But anyways, I decided to chop it up and put some of the cuttings. So this is just like a fraction of that plant. And I also put some neon pothos cuttings in here, and they all live in water, and they've been in here for a very, very long time. And this morning, actually, I was going to split them up, take out the neon pothos cuttings and take out the Marble Queen pothos cuttings, but it just looks so good. I just love how the neon pothos gives like an accent to the colors. Not like the Marble Queen needs help because it has these beautiful variegated leaves. Again, these leaves are not nearly as variegated as it used to be when I had the mother plant. But anyways, I thought of splitting them up because they sort of seem to be fighting for room at the bottom here. You can probably see that. A lot of the new growth is getting stuck. So I either need to separate them or give them a bigger vase, but I haven't decided yet. Up here, I have the cuttings I was talking about of my neon pothos. That's it coming down here. It's a bit bare, a bit scanty, and I could probably just pot it into here. But I love this plant so much that I don't mind having multiples of it. And then on this side here, I have, just ignore the little tissue there from when I spill water. But this is the mother plant. This is my original mini Monstera. This is made from this one. I need to figure out a better setup for it so that probably it could crawl along the ceiling or go along here. But anyways, it's in soil, and it used to be just in a regular pot, but I couldn't get to the waterings in time. Sounds familiar? And so I put it in a self-watering pot, which I still can't stay on top of, but in my defense, there's just a little bit of water in there, so it's okay, but I need to refill that. And then down here is my Xanthosoma, and this one, I thought I pretty much lost this plant. I thought I did. You may recognize it from, I think it's my January favorites video, and I talk a lot about the care for this plant and the process that we both went through, but it's doing so much better, and it's given me this new leaf. And since that video, it's given me this bigger leaf here. Is it bigger? Or maybe the same size? Actually, that one's bigger, but it's doing a lot better, and I'm very happy about that. So it's set up now in Pon and Perlite. So it's a mixture that I like to put together for plants that seem to be a bit finicky, and it seems to be loving it so far. And here I have my IKEA cabinet. This cabinet, I would love if I could keep the door closed and make it humid, but it doesn't get very humid with the door closed. And I even tried to insulate it, but it still doesn't have a lot of high humidity. So I just keep the door open and let the humidifier hit underneath here, and then it also cascades and goes down on these plants here. So here I will need to back it up a little bit. Here I have a few plants, just a few cuttings. So this is mini Monstera cuttings growing in sphagnum moss. It outgrew the prop box, so I put it in here. I also have this little guy. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll remember this. This is my Monstera Stanleyana, used to be Albo, and this plant was giving me so many like pure white leaves, like ghost leaves that sadly, I had to chop off that part of the plant that was giving me all white leaves. And so now it's more of like a speckled sort of variegation, but it still has quite a bit of that white variegation in here. I hope you can see the little bit of white variegation on this here. So that means that there's still a very high possibility that I'll get a lot of high variegation. Well, not high variegation, but I'll get some variegated leaves. But I really love the cream part of it. But this plant, I must say, this plant was so hard to grow. And I think I finally figured it out somewhat. It likes a little bit more humidity, and I have it growing here in sphagnum moss, and under the sphagnum moss, I have leca in here. So, so far so good. It seems to be doing well in here. And I also have some more cuttings of them that originally I was going to sell, but I think I'm just going to pot them all up in one plant and give it like a nice pole to crawl up and wrap it around. I have plans for this plant this summer. So I'm looking forward to growing it, but it has quite a few, not quite a few, but it has a few of those highly variegated leaves. So I hope that it'll continue on this very nicely balanced path of variegation, because the all white leaves basically, they do nothing for the plant. The plant can make food from those all white leaves, and they also turn to mush. This just makes it a lot easier, but that's the rest of what's in here. Just a bunch of those Monstera Stanleyana Albo cuttings. Well, they're not really Albo anymore. I'm sorry. And then I have some Rhaphidophora decursiva in the back here, and another, yeah, that's Rhaphidophora decursiva there. Okay, and then right here, usually it's either here or behind my humidifier, I have a Philodendron silver sword. It was gifted to me, the cuttings were, and I was able to put them together. It's in sphagnum moss here, and then perlite at the bottom. It has been growing slowly for me, and I can't seem to get the leaves to size up. The leaves seem to be smaller than the original leaves. I'm not sure if it's because it's a baby or if I'm not giving it enough light. Maybe I should put it up here instead, next to this grow light. I don't know. But it's not thriving, but it's not declining. So maybe in the summertime I may change up the setup of this plant. It's just in a plastic cup, the same cup that I propagated it in. So yeah, it's not thriving, but at least it's not declining. So that's this one here. Let's keep going. So down below, it gets a little bit more interesting. We have some of my favorites. So let's start over here. Down here is Syngonium. I think it's just a pink spot, and I have it growing in water, just in water, in like a jar that used to have maybe pasta sauce or something. But yeah, it just has those tiny little pink specks in there. And the lower light you give it, the greener the leaves look, but the higher light you give it, the whiter or the lighter the leaves look. And it's just a nice little plant that, you know, it's growing well. It's okay. I like it. And then over here, oh my goodness, I'm never good at the Alocasia names. So this is an Alocasia silver dragon. And this Alocasia, it's one of the first Alocasias in my collection. I don't have that many, and I'm figuring them out. So this one, it's doing well considering I'm a newbie at Alocasias, and it has a new growth coming up here. It's in pond in a self-watering pot, and I definitely prefer that because these can be hard to figure out when and how to water it. You see a little damage here, but this damage was before I put it in a self-watering pot. And so if you saw maybe on my Instagram, I posted a reel of how I'm excited that it now is pushing out some roots down below, and the roots have touched the water reservoir and they actually haven't turned brown. So that is a great sign, and I'm expecting great, beautiful things in the future from this plant. So I'm excited. And then down here is my Alocasia Black Velvet. It was doing well. It was okay. And then I watered it from the top one day. And the next morning I came and this leaf was like, "Mwah." It really was not happy that I added water. I see some new growth is coming here, but that tells me that it's getting enough water in here in pond. And well, at least I think that's what it's telling me. And that, I mean, no roots down here, but I think it's getting enough water from the pond in this self-watering setup, and I shouldn't go bothering it. And so that's what caused that. But that's okay. We have new growth coming up here. And I also have so many corms. You may remember this plant. And down here, I have a Syngonium red spot tricolor. And this plant, I featured it recently in my yearly favorites. This plant made me fall in love with Syngonium. It's such a beautiful plant. This plant has been so patient with me. And since I've put it, I had it in water, but I put it in pond in a self-watering pot. And just like the silver dragon, it finally has roots at the bottom coming out into the water reservoir. And I'm quite thrilled about that. It means that it's doing well. And its newest leaf, it's probably getting washed out from all the sunlight coming in here, but its newest leaf is extremely pink. And I'm excited about that. I've heard that every other leaf is pink, so it'll have a speckled leaf like this with green with some white speckles, and then another leaf with like a huge amount of pink variegation. We'll find out because it has another leaf coming in here and it actually looks like it has pink in it. There might be some pink in here, so definitely an uncommon plant, but it is not difficult. It can be a slow grower if you haven't perfected the care, but once you have, it will thrive. It'll grow really well for you, and it's also patient with you until you've perfected or figured out the care. And then over here, I have a Philodendron Pink Princess Marble, and I got this recently on one of my plant hauls. It has a marbled pink variegation. It lost a leaf here where my cats knocked over my plants, but so far so good. It's not growing the fastest, but I think it's just acclimating to pond. So yeah. And here we have one of my prides and joys, one of my favorite plants in my collection currently, and it brings me so much joy. But this is my Alocasia Frydek variegated, and I absolutely love this plant. It is wow, for such a highly variegated plant. I'm so surprised that it's not overly difficult to care for. I've featured this plant so many times on my channel and on my Instagram because it's stunning. It's stunning. I love it. I look at this plant so often because I absolutely adore this plant. And it was one of the few and first Alocasias in my collection. And I'm just so surprised at how well it's doing since I've had it. So it's leaning a little bit, it was giving me these kinds of leaves, which is beautiful. I don't mind. Speckled variegation, the light green, the white, I didn't mind. And then when I got these grow lights, then it really started to show off and it started to give these highly variegated leaves. So it came out with this extremely variegated leaf. I can't even call it a half moon because like a lot of this, the right side of the leaf actually is variegated as well. So I pushed it a little bit away from the grow light, and so that's why it's leaning. And since then, it has given me this more balanced leaf, a leaf with a little bit of more balanced variegation. And I like this, but I don't like the leaning so much, so I've pulled it a little bit back under the grow lights. And take a look at these cuties down below. So evidently some corms have activated down below. When I was repotting it the first time, the corms were still too small to be taken off the mother plant. So I left them and they've actually activated. So look at these leaves. They're adorable. The cute little leaves. Look at this one. Again, they're getting really high amounts of light, so I need to draw them back. I need to find that perfect balance, and it has some new growth coming in here. So I have it in pawn and perlite. I have a video on the setup, and it's doing well. And down below, the roots are trying to reach the reservoir, but initially the roots were turning brown when they touched the water. So I'm not sure if it's focusing or if you can see it, but the roots would turn brown. But now it has a new root coming out that is able to touch the water. I can see it's wet and it's not brown. So it means that maybe it's pushing out some water roots. And I don't know. I'm not that good with the root system of plants. I'm not an expert there, but if you are, please let me know in the comments. But I'm glad that it's just acclimating and adjusting to its setup and it's doing well. It brings me a lot of joy. Right next to it, I have another one of my favorite plants right now, and that is my Philodendron Jose Buono. Like, this plant makes me so happy. It gives me so much joy. Okay, so here's how this plant works. It grows, the new leaves have this very high variegation if you give them a lot of light. It's very white, high, not green, not a lot of green if you're giving it lots amount of light. And as you can see, it has a little speckles here of green. So what happens is as the plant, as the leaf hardens off, it becomes this dark green color. And I love this plant because I don't mind that it hardens off into this really minty dark green color. I just love the variety. I love that I can have this highly variegated leaf and then get this minty color, which is fine because I'm assuming that the more green the leaf is, the more the plant is able to photosynthesize. So I don't mind at all, but I'm just glad that I'm able to enjoy some variegation and then it's still a good balance. The plant isn't suffering. But this is honestly one of the fastest growing plants in my collection. I have it in my DIY aeroid mix and I love this plant. It grows so quickly. It's so satisfying. It's a great plant for beginners. So if you're a beginner and you would like a plant that is more on the uncommon, rarer side, you want to have variegation and you're sort of wary, this is definitely one I would recommend for beginners. And again, it was under the grow light and it was getting some highly variegated leaves. I got a little scared. So I pulled it away a little bit. So this leaf doesn't have as much of the light white variegation. But I put it back under the grow light. I mean, it'll harden off into dark green, right? It'll be fine. Okay, and then down here, right next to my Jose Buono, so you'll see my Frydek, Jose Buono, and right here is my Monstera Constellation. I have an entire video where I repotted this plant and put it into pon and leca, also into a self-watering pot. And update, the roots have reached the water reservoir down below. So it's doing well. It's happy so far. No root rot on this plant. It has a reputation of rotting. And so I'm glad this is its newest leaf. It's doing well, beautifully glossy, and I love this plant. All right, and then next to the window here is my Philodendron Xanadu. As you can see, it's sort of very large and in charge. I recently thinned out this plant a bit because it was so full and huge. So I chopped off quite a bit of the leaves and I cut off some of the roots. So if you look down here, you'll see that this plant is growing in water. So it's another one of my plants that live in water. And tip or note to self, note to everyone, when you chop off the roots on this plant, it doesn't quite like that. So I did get quite a few yellowing tips on the leaves of this plant. But again, it grows so quickly. The new growth hasn't been affected. It comes in like normal. So what I like about this plant is that it hangs on to growth. So it doesn't yellow and lose leaves very easily. It's a very hardy plant. I have an entire care video on this plant. And again, it lives in water and it's quite happy. So please be sure to check out that video if you'd like to know more care tips on this plant and how it handles pests, how I care for it, how I change the water, etc. And then down here, I have my Thermatophyllum, my Philodendron Sedum. I think it's a Sedum, or is it a Thermatophyllum? I don't remember. But let's call it a Philodendron Sedum. And if I'm wrong, I'll put the other name or the correct name down below. So I have two of them, 1 and 2. One I bought for myself, and one my friends gifted me because I mentioned I wanted it, and so they decided to get me one and I didn't realize. So I have two of them. They're pretty easygoing. I usually put them outside in the when the weather is warm. So they're hanging out down here at the bottom of my plant wall, hiding my planty things down below. And yeah, in the summertime, they'll go outside. And then another plant you may have recently seen in one of my videos is my Dieffenbachia. Again, a hardy, easy to grow plant. I have it growing in water. So it's in a completely hydro setup. It's only water in here. And I have a video on how I care for it, etc. But it's still doing well. I'm thinking of selling this plant. I feel like, you know, yeah, I'm thinking of selling it, but we'll see. I'll hang on to it. Maybe I'll just put it outside for the summer. Anyways. And then over here, I believe I put a bunch of corms in my prop box, but didn't label them. So I actually don't remember what this is, but I know it's Alocasia. Is it silver dragon? Is it dragon scale? I think it's silver dragon. I'm not sure, but I took them out of the prop box because I needed space, and now they are not happy. I've lost a few leaves, but that's okay. I know they'll pop back up eventually, but they're in leca and perlite. And yeah, I know they'll pop up eventually, so I'm not worried. That's it for my wall, my plant wall. And underneath my plant wall, I have some more plants here, propagating, and plants that they need a high amount of humidity because I need them to get some more roots. So I'm going to show you those next. But before I do that, down here, you maybe remember this plant. This is my Hoya Obovata Splash. I got this in last month in March. And then next to it, I have another Hoya. Okay, so I decided to get up close. So this is a Hoya, I believe it's a Nicholsoni, or I'll put the name on the screen. I can never quite remember or pronounce the name of this one. But this one I got in February. You may remember it from my February plant haul. And yes, I just have it on this wire, DIY wire trellis here. They say that this plant is fast growing. So what I hope is that as it grows quickly, that I can loop it around here and eventually you won't even see my trellis. So, but anyways, I have it in pond in like a semi-hydro setup with a self-watering, with water down below. It has been growing a bit slower than I would like, but it seems to have finally found its footing, found its roots, and it seems to be finally getting somewhere. So I have some new growth coming in right here. So very slowly but surely. And these leaves 1 and 2 are new leaves grown in my care. And I noticed that the vine is starting to push out some new growth. So you may notice right here, I have some growth coming here and then some new growth coming out at the top. So it seems to be getting there. I'm not sure what I'm not doing well because everyone talks about how fast this plant grows and it hasn't grown that quickly for me. I know that Hoya can take a while to acclimate and get used to a new substrate and to get established. So maybe that's the situation with this plant. But anyways, that's this one. Another plant that I have in that south facing window is this one. This is a Hoya AH074. Again, you may remember it from my February haul. And here it's growing slowly, but it's coming along. It's grown 2 new leaves, 1 and 2 in my care, and then it's pushing off, it's working on some new growth on over here. It has these taco-like leaves, and inside it tends to have the variegation. So there's some splash on this one. The leaves that it came with, like this one here, had a very high minty type variegation here. But the newest growth that I've had do not have this type of variegation. I mean, they have it, but it's not as intense as the other one. And so this one has a little bit of that variegation inside here, if you can see it. So what I hope is eventually, as this gets longer, as this vines, if it doesn't have high variegation, I'll just cut it back, stick it back in here, and hopefully it will push out another growth point that's closer to this highly variegated leaf here that's closer to this highly variegated leaf, and hopefully that'll have higher variegation. Next is my Hoya Silver Dollar. Again, most of my Hoya, actually almost all the Hoya you'll see in this haul, I got either in February or March. Let's just say that. And so this one, I was so excited to get it. And finally, it has pushed out some new growth. So it has 2 new leaves here, 1 and 2. It seems to have a little bit of sunburn here in the back on this leaf. Maybe, I don't know, this plant can sun stress beautifully, but maybe it just got a little too intense. I'm not sure, but so that's happened there, and I'm happy for this new leaf here. And so far, that's the only 2 new leaves that it's showing. It looks like it might want to push something out here at that growth point, but that's it for now. For some people, this can grow very quickly. For me, not so much, but I'm glad that it pushed out something. So it means that I'm doing something right. And here it's in pond in a self-watering pot. And for this, I try to keep the water quite high up. Not too high, but I try to keep it a little bit higher than I normally would for a self-watering pot, just until it's fully established and growing really, really well. But that's this one. This is a Hoya Silver Dollar. And over here, I have a Hoya Carnosa Nova Ghost. So this one, it's pretty. It has softer leaves. I'm not sure if it's supposed to all have softer leaves, but mine does. And I have it growing in Molly's aeroid mix. I had one long cutting. I chopped it in half and I put this one down here. This one is taking forever to root. I had it in water. Nothing happened in water. Nothing. And then I put it in this aeroid mix here, and suddenly the root started pushing out, and it's doing so much better. So this is one of those plants that I think may prefer maybe fibers, to have fibers rather than pond. I'm not sure. Maybe someone else has it in pond and it's thriving. But this cutting was in water and it got lots of leaves, and not lots of leaves, lots of roots. And so it was able to push out this new growth here. So that's it for now. Hopefully it'll grow a little bit faster. It's another one that people say grows quickly, but not yet, not for me. Again, I know that Hoya take a long time to acclimate and get used to their medium if you change anything about their environment. So I just have to be patient, but happily we're going into a sunnier, longer days. So hopefully they'll grow for me. Next, I have a Hoya Hushkiliana variegated. It is so tiny. I've heard mixed reports about this plant. I've heard some people say that this plant thrives for them. It grows so quickly. And then I've heard just a few people who have an experience similar to mine, where it's growing a bit on the slower side. If you change anything about its conditions, it will lose a leaf. It will be a bit annoyed with you. But yeah, and this is definitely one of the thirstier Hoyas in my collection. When I was propagating it, if I let the water drop too low, it would stop growing. And as soon as I put the water reservoir back up, then it will start pushing out new growth. But yeah, it's growing, but slowly. But anyways, I'm glad that it's doing something rather than nothing. I hope that you can see it, but that's this one. In this video, I'm not going to go through my prop boxes. I have 3 boxes. One is with legit propagations, but the others are Hoyas that I just want to give them higher humidity. So these ones I will go through. This is what it looks like. I've got this deeper one. I got it from the dollar store, and I got it just so that the taller Hoya can grow. So let's start with this one, probably the saddest one. This is a Hoya, not Rebecca. This is a Hoya Sunrise. And this one, again, I said I wouldn't show propagations, but this is a propagation. It's looking weak. It's looking tired. I bought this, a full plant, and I noticed it had pests on it, and I chopped it up. I put it on a side in a Ziploc bag to sort of isolate it a bit, and I had it in water. So It's coming along, but it's coming along slowly. I may lose this plant altogether, but at least I only paid $5 for it, so my heart isn't broken. Over here is a Hoya Wibergiae, or is it Wibergiae? A Hoya, can't remember the name, but I'll put it on the screen. But this one, I bought it and it was gifted to me, and it just wasn't growing. I mean, I know that Hoya take a while to acclimate. But it just wasn't growing. It wasn't doing anything. So I chopped it up and put it into water, and it's growing some roots. Yay. I said I wouldn't show props, but here I am with my Hoya. Yes, so hopefully this is going to live in water for a very, very, very long time before I pot it up, because it's such a slow growing plant, and I know I'm in no rush to pot it up. I just want it to have healthy roots. Are you enjoying the video? If you are, let me know by hitting the like button down below. And if you haven't subscribed as yet, you may want to consider doing that. That way you will be able to easily find my videos in the future. Okay, let's keep going. Next is my Hoya Matilde Splash. This plant, again, I got it recently in February, and it has really high amounts of splashing on this, so I'm very happy about that. But in some areas, as you can see on this leaf here, the splashing is not as high. But I know some people cut them off and let go of them. But because I'm trying to get this plant to establish itself, I'm going to leave the less variegated leaves and let them hang in there until the plant is lush and growing a lot bigger. And then I'll chop them back and decide whether I want to put them back in or create a whole other pot of them. But so far, so good. I've heard people say that the splashing depends on the genetics, and that's probably very good. Maybe it's a combination of both, the amount of light and genetics, because here this leaf almost has a very defined line, as if it was behind another leaf when it was growing. Right there, didn't get any light, and so right at this point here has absolutely zero variegation, and it's such a sharp line, and everything else has the splashing. So maybe it's a delightful combination of both, of genetics and light. And then next I have this is a Hoya Michele or Michele Splash. This one, I got it as one long cutting, and then I split it up into two. It has a very woody stem about it, and so in a way it works in its favor, because then I find the woody stems root a lot faster than the non-woody stems or the less woody stems. I don't know, but I imagined that this plant would be slow growing, especially if I'm growing it in natural light and not grow lights, and my assumption was correct. I've had it for a little while. Again, it feels like forever for me, but to Hoya, I've had it maybe for 5 minutes, and it hasn't pushed out any new growth. I see some indications here that it might. I can see a little bit of pink. I'm not sure if you can see it here by my thumb. So it looks like it's doing something here. And on the other side, can you see? Yes, there we go. There. So it looks like it might have some new growth soon, but so far nothing. And then it looks like it may have something coming up here on this little hump. So nothing yet. And I've heard that these little red dots on it are due to edema. That's when not the blood vessels, oh my goodness. That's when like the vessels inside of the leaf, they burst and they cause almost like a scar on the leaf. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, please correct me. I'm no plant expert. But yeah, I love this plant. I love the very large leaves and the textured veining. Like you could feel the veins, and I love the splash. I love large leaf Hoya, so you'll notice a pattern in my plants. You'll see that a lot of them have large leaves. Another one that I have here is my Hoya Hushkaliana Variegated. If you saw that initial haul video, I got a really generous cutting of this plant, but I'm not gonna lie, this plant is so hard to propagate. Every single one of the cuttings, I cut it up into smaller pieces just to make it, give it a higher chance of survival, and all of them rotted on me. And this is the only 2 pieces I have left that are growing very slowly. So I've had 1, 2, 3 new leaves, no variegation. I only have one variegated leaf left. So it may not even be a variegated Valeriana anymore. But yeah, so anyways, I have this like cutting like this plant and then another one in the back here. But I look forward to hopefully this plant doing a little bit more for me soon in the growing season. But I have it in that prop box, so hopefully with higher humidity, it'll give me some more growth. But that's where it is so far. That's where I am with it. Over here, another slow growing Hoya. This is a Hoya Carnosa Wilbur Graves Russia. I was so excited when I got this one and I'm very happy to have it. I love the sort of oval leaves with the high amounts of splashing. I'm so excited to have this. But so far, the two new growth points, the two new leaves, I should say, that it got from this side of, from closer to this leaf has, whoops, dropping water, has no variegation on them. It has no splashing. So I will allow again this to grow out and then I'm going to snip it and hopefully it'll trigger this, the growth point on this side, sorry, on this side here. So closer to this leaf, this growth point. And then that way, hopefully I'll get some more splashing on this side. And yeah, I look forward to what this plant can do. But I realize that it's going to take me a while before my Hoya grow into these lush, beautiful plants that I'm excited for them to become. But we're along for the journey, and I've never had Hoya before, so I'm learning as I go with these plants. I have another box. I wouldn't say it's a prop box again, but cuttings that I'm trying to get rooted. These are Hoya cuttings. Over here is a reverted Hoya Carnosa China. When I bought it, it had very low variegation. I knew that, but I got it just in case, you know, it might come back and give me some more splashing. Actually, this leaf has a little bit more splashing, a little bit more speckles than all the other leaves. I mean, like a cluster. So there's hope. There's hope. There's a cluster there, but I've decided not to give up on this plant. I am going to grow it, and if it just ends up reverting into a plain carnosa, that's fine. I don't have any plain carnosas in my collection. But again, so 4 new leaves from one long cutting that I've snipped in 2, and we've got some new growth coming in at the top here. And another Hoya here that I'm just trying to root up. This is a Hoya. This is supposed to be a Mathilde, but it looks like a serpent to me. It has the shape of a serpent, but because it was sold to me as actually it was gifted to me as a Mathilde, we'll call it a Mathilde. It's taking forever to root up. I've got it here in Molly's aeroid potting mix. Another Hoya that I got, I can't quite remember the name of this. I'll put it on the screen. I think it's a sunrise. I'm not sure. I don't think it's a sunrise. I can't remember, but I'll put the name on the screen. But yeah, we'll see. I don't remember. I'll just be in for a surprise when it actually grows longer and it starts to bloom. But yeah, it's got a little moss on the top here, but that's okay. I just have it growing, and that's its newest leaf here. And it's got another one coming. This took forever. It took so long to grow this, but it's doing something and I'm excited. Another Hoya I have here is the Hoya Wibergiae. So this one, again, I got it maybe in January. So this one here has a little bit of splashing on the leaves. It's very hard. The leaves are extremely hard on this one. And it's another very slow growing Hoya. It has some new growth coming here. And yeah, it took a long time. It was actually in soil and I changed the medium and put it into pond. So I think that's why it took a very long time. But it pushed out this new leaf and it still took a very long time before it pushed this out. But anyway, it's sitting in my prop box and yeah, that's where it is now. So over here, I have the biggest houseplant in my collection, and that's my Ficus fiddly fig. My Ficus, oh my goodness, the name has left me, but it's a Ficus fiddly fig. And this one, I have an entire video on this plant, so I'm not going to go too much into detail as to how I've cared for this plant, but I will talk about my goals for this plant. I've started a new series called The Big Chop, and in that I'm chopping all of my biggest houseplants. And this one is definitely on the chopping block. As you can see, it's huge. It's touching the ceiling. I've air layered this plant before, but this time I'm not going to air layer it. I think I'm just going to slice it right here and just encourage it to hopefully push new growth lower down where it's lost a lot of its older leaves, and just help the plant to restart a bit. But I need to find the perfect time to do it. I don't want to do it too early. I want to do it when we have longer days of sunlight. That way the plant won't go into too much shock and the plant won't be overwatered, because it is in a very, very big pot. And so it could easily get overwatered if it doesn't have enough foliage to support all of the water and soil down below. So that's my goal with this plant. But for now, she got a nice clean cleanup. My mom was so kind to come over and very nicely clean her leaves. And so she looks a lot better than she did before, less dusty and crusty. And yeah, that's my biggest houseplant. Okay, and then over here, I have a plant that I've been trying to sell for the longest while. This is my bird of paradise. It was touching the ceiling. I'm not sure if I still have clips of that. And it was so high and so leggy that this leaf here, it just bent, and I wasn't able to recover it, like to make it stand up again. So I chopped it. And then that gave me the biggest idea of not selling this plant, but keeping it and just slicing all the leaves off. So I might include it in my big chop video. I should, right? Because I'm doing a big chop on a big plant. Hopefully, as long as I don't go too low, it should push up a new leaf from here, which it's currently doing. It has some new growth coming in here. Can you see like the light yellow color here? So a new leaf is going to emerge from here soon. But what I did until then, it was in a terracotta pot, drying out too quickly. And that's why it has all of this browning here on the leaves. So I put it again in a plastic pot. I do need to top it off with some more soil at the top, clearly. I have the soil there. I just need to come and do it. And yeah, so that's my plan with this plant. Let me know if you think I should include it in my big chop video. And here behind the piano is easy plant. That's this one. I've had it for a few years now. It's doing well. I think, although it's taking forever, this is the only new leaf I've had in about a year with this plant. But maybe, I think where I had it before, the light conditions was too low. And now it's doing a little bit better. I mean, this is a little bit of a darker corner, but here is a south facing window and this is a west facing window. So I'm hoping it will have a little bit of darkness here. This area is dark, but the room is bright. And here we have another one of my biggest houseplants. I was meaning to actually wipe it down before I show you, but there's no time for that now. This is my Monstera Adansonii, and definitely this plant desperately needs a big chop. When I say desperate, I mean desperate. It's just out of control. And it has leaves growing everywhere. Actually, I don't quite know how to properly put it here because I've been rotating it so much that now we have leaves growing in all directions. So now it doesn't fit flush onto the wall. So I already bought the new planter that I'm going to put it in down here, but I'm not ready to do that big chop. I want to record it for you and include you in on this big endeavor that my mom is going to help me with. So I'm just waiting for the right weather conditions so I could go outside and do it. But I'm thinking of chopping it somewhere maybe around here and potting up these big, beautiful leaves with these beautiful fenestrations in there. And then I'm not sure as to what I'm going to do about the bottom yet. There are multiple plants in this pot. So I think that I'm not sure, I might sell these plants or give them away. I don't know what I will do yet, but I'm definitely going to restart this plant, but in a way that hopefully will not take away from these beautiful leaves. On my dining table is one of the plants that was included in my, in my yearly favorites. This was in my favorites video for 2023. And this is Monstera Adansonii. It it can be a very tricky plant. It was very tricky for me for a long time, but I think I finally figured it out. And recently I put it in this self-watering pot. You know, it rebelled a little bit. It gave me, you know, the stink eye and yellowed of maybe one or two leaves. But I think now she's used to the self-watering pot and I think she likes it. And she's pushing out some new growth up above. So I'm happy about that. Okay, so before I go upstairs and film the plants upstairs, I thought I would just come to the basement and film these plants here. So this is my office and this is a south facing window. I'm in the basement. I think I did say that. And so this window gets quite a bit of light. I have propagations, not propagations, it's an actual plant now of my Marble Queen Pothos. I propagated these. I was going to sell it, but I never actually did. And I had it in a very low light situation for a long time. So you can see why it got like solid green leaves with no variegation. But since I brought it down here, you can see the variegation is back. And I've been giving this plant more care. I didn't treat this plant very well. It was underwatered for a long time. So, but now that it's in my space, and that's another reason why I keep it right here, so that I can always remember it. And so hopefully it'll grow beautifully for me and it'll grow nicely down here. And here, this is a recent purchase. This is a philodendron, what's it called? Philodendron lemon lime. That's right. This desperately needs to be repotted because the mix that it's in right now, it is just drying out so quickly. I never let plants stay in my home with the mix from the nursery, but I just haven't gotten around to repotting this as yet. So anyways, when I do repot it, I am going to stick a few plants back in to fill it out a bit. But again, I know I have a philodendron. I know I have a neon pothos, but look at those heart-shaped leaves. They're so gorgeous. I really want a nice, full, lush plant of this. I want a big one of these. So, yeah. This, I think, I don't even know what's in here. I think I might have a golden pothos, a reverted golden pothos. Not sure, but this could be the reverted part of this. I don't know if this is a pearls and jade or Pothos and Joy. I can never remember the difference, but this is another plant that I neglected for a very, very long time. It was cuttings from a friend. I'm sorry. I've had this for years. I got it during the pandemic and I had it in soil. It just didn't like its life in soil. So I put it in water and I put it in the south facing window and finally it's starting to do something. It's growing a lot better and it's a lot happier. We have so much, the leaves are a lot prettier now and we're getting some consistent growth. So I'm glad. At one point I was going to retire this plant, but I'm glad I didn't. Now it's doing much better. And here is my very first Hoya that I ever got. This was in a recent video. This was in my, I think my January favorites as a comeback. And this is a Hoya Australis Lisa. Again, I messed with this plant. My hands get itchy with my Hoya sometimes and I messed with it. And so now it's slowed back its growth again. You can see I have like a broken leaf here because someone in my family that will remain unnamed, they sort of hit it with a curtain or something and it snapped. So, but anyways, it's growing now. It has new growth. I think it's finally starting to acclimate to the medium that it's in. I've put it in a self-watering pot in Molly's aeroid mix, and I think it's finally coming around very, very, very slowly, but it's coming around. And I thought I was going to lose this plant at one point, and I thought I can't lose it. I just featured it in a comeback video, in a favorites video as my comeback, so I can't lose it. Here, this is my, I think it's a strawberry cream Syngonium. This plant is really cute. I love the pink on the leaves. So when it gets enough light, the newest leaves will have this very pink color. But as they harden off, it becomes like this sort of dirty brown color. Not my favorite color, but that's okay because it's such a easy growing plant and I do have it growing entirely in water. I literally took it out of the soil and just put it into water when I got it and it hasn't complained it hasn't bat an eye. It hasn't done anything. I literally, I can't find any fault with this plant. But anyways, that's this one. I featured it also in my yearly favorites video, so you can get more detail about the care there. I recently talked about this plant in my last favorites video. It's my March favorites, so I wouldn't go into too much detail. But this is a Philodendron white princess hair, and this is a Philodendron white wizard. And the difference between the two, they look very similar. They are in I'll just explain this in case you didn't see that video. They are in two separate pots, but in a self-watering pot, right? That's all I will say. And the differences between the two is this plant can get a little bit of pink. The white princess can get pink. So it can have green, white, and pink leaves, and you'll see a little bit of pink on the petiole here. And the white wizard is only green and white. And I feel like the leaves on the white wizard tends to be broader, and they tend to have just green and white variegation, no pink in them. So yeah, that's these two. They're growing nicely since I've upgraded them into this setup. Again, if you want more information on it, you could check out my favorites video. And over here is my Sansevieria, my snake plant. I've had this plant here for, I think, from the time I got it. This is where it has always lived. It probably needs some water. I have never gone in and looked at the roots. I have never done any care on this plant whatsoever, except take a few cuttings to propagate. And I gave those cuttings away. But this is where it lives. It is extremely slow growing, but I just really like it because it fills out this corner right here. And I have a grow light up above, which I don't think provides a whole lot of light, but it hasn't lost any leaves. And so until then, I'm going to keep it here until it shows me signs of stress. I've thought about moving it into my office, but then this area will be bare because I have nothing else that will survive here. So that's where it is. Next, we are in like my entryway, my hallway, and this is a Tradescantia, like a variegated Tradescantia. If you watched my first plant tour video, you will see this plant looked a whole lot happier, and it has been a lot happier. But there's a story. So anyways, let me start at the beginning. This plant was just so big, and it was in my south facing window in my bathroom, and it was thriving. It was living its best life, doing really well, but it was just, I couldn't stay on top of the watering. Honestly, if I did not chop this plant, it would have been touching the floor here. I'm not gonna lie. Like seriously, it took my husband and I a very long time to get this plant in the macrame hanger. I made this hanger for it, and it took us so long to get it in here. And the only way to do that was to chop the plant. And so this window is a north facing window, and I've lost many plants to this window because there is an overhang here. So in north windows where I live, we get no direct sunlight, but I figured just because this is a very big window, the right plant will be able to survive here. So this plant, I've already propagated it. So if I lose it, I won't be devastated. But as you can see, it's lost quite a few. We have some bald areas here. And yes, it's bald compared to how full this plant used to be. But anyways, I put it in a self-watering pot. But I have hope because if you notice up above where you can see those leaves pointing upwards and these leaves pointing out, that means that I think this plant is starting to acclimate and get used to this area. So now that we're going to go to even longer days, I think it's going to enjoy this corner even more. So far, so good. If you're still with me, thank you for staying with me. I am in my son's room now. And right here, I have the biggest, what's it called? The biggest Marble Queen Pothos left in my collection. Like I mentioned, I lost my mother plant. And so I put some cuttings in here, and this plant actually lives in water. Not the prettiest setup, but yes, it lives in water, and it lives here in my son's room in this north facing window. And even many times he forgets to open up his window, it still has lots of well, not this leaf. It still has lots of variegation. I'm surprised at how much variegation it has. Last but not least, we're in my bedroom. So now we're going to talk about all the plants that are in my bedroom and the bathroom. So this is a south-facing window. Usually these curtains are opened, but for the sake of this video, I have drawn them closed. And I actually got this plant stand on Facebook Marketplace for $30, but it sells on Amazon for double the price, but you can find it there. I want another one of these, but I don't think I will be able to get it the same way I did. So the second one I will have to get off of Amazon. Anyways, I love this setup that I have here right next to my bed. That's right here. You can see my headboard. And I love it because before I go to bed, my husband teases me how I have to, part of my nighttime routine is looking at my plants and making sure they're okay and looking at the leaves every night before I go to bed and every morning when I wake up. So it brings me a lot of joy. So here I keep some of my favorite plants, some of them, the small ones, and ones that may need a little extra care and attention. So let's take them down and look at them one by one. So let's start, I think, at the top and then work our ways down. So in here, in this most adorable self-watering pot, I have this Hoya, let's see, it's a Hoya mint coin. This one I've had for a while. So I've had this plant since December and I sort of messed up the care a little bit. I got ahead of myself, so I had to sort of restart it. But anyways, it's finally growing. We have this very Lacunosa-like leaf here, but here the leaves it came with are these true mint coin leaves with, you know, the very oval leaf shape, and is it oval but more coin-like leaf shape. But anyways, we've got some new growth coming in here and they're longer, not quite the mint coin look that I'm going for, but I hope that eventually as I stop bothering it, it'll give me a nice full pot of those very round coin-like leaves. So I'm looking forward to that. But here I have the Hoya Rebecca. I'll move this to this side. I have a Hoya Rebecca. I spoke about this recently in my last video, so I won't go into too much detail about this, but I got this plant recently in the month of March. And then another plant, again, I spoke about it recently. So a lot of the plants that I got last month are here so that I can daily, every day, every morning and every night, take a peek at them and make sure they're okay. So this one, again, you've seen recently, this is my Hoya Rangsan that I got recently in the month of March. When you saw it, it wasn't yet potted up. So this is new for you, that it's now potted up in a good old-fashioned McDonald's cup. Again, reduce, reuse, and recycle. But anyways, it's in pon and it's in a semi-hydro setup. So hopefully it'll, you know, grow well for me and make good use of this peduncle that it has already. Hopefully soon. And then over here next to it is a plant that you would have seen in my January haul or February haul. This is a Hoya crassipetiolata splash. So this is what it looks like. I think this may be a better angle for you. But yes, here I have my Hoya crassipetiolata splash. Beautiful, beautiful leaves. I love the splashing on it. And again, in my care, it has grown this new leaf here, and along the vine, it has produced these two new leaves, and it has kept vining for me. So it has two leaves here. It looks like it's going to, please focus. It has two leaves here that it's also going to hopefully push out soon. And yeah, it's quite a long vine. Let's see if I can capture it all. It's quite a long vine. Again, I won't go into too much detail on the next tier. This is my Hoya Larisa. It has a little bit of splash here that I really like. I got this plant last month and you can see it's featured. You can find it because it's featured on that video last month. Again, it's in pon. Nothing new has happened. No new growth as yet. My Hoya, I think it's a Lacunosa silver or a Croniana silver. And this plant, again, I've spoken about this before. Sometimes it feels like it's a mint coin. There are some leaves that have that very coin-like shape to them. But again, it could just be because they're all from the Lacunosa family, and so that's why they all may look similar. But again, I find this plant so interesting. It has, you know, these splashing here, this light green splashing here over the mint, and here in these ones here have no splashing on them. But again, it could just be the light exposure. But anyways, the last time you saw this plant, which was recently, it was entirely in like a plastic pot. But since then, I've put it in a self-watering pot just because I don't want to mess up the watering of this plant. I look forward to having like a nice cascading version of this plant. So I'm looking forward to that, but it's definitely one of my favorites. Another plant that you would have seen recently, again, this shelf has a lot of plants you've seen, but this is my Hoya Rime Splash. The new change, the new thing that you would see in this video is that I put it in pond and I put it in like in water, in pond, like a semi-hydro setup. But again, I love these leaves. It looks very similar to the Rangsan, but there's a slight difference. I love the more oval-like leaves versus the longer leaf shape on the Rangsan. And I really love this plant. It's stunning, stunning. So stay tuned. This Hoya Latifolia. This one is, I think which one is it? White? I think it's white. I can't remember, but this is a Hoya Latifolia. And I got this since you've last seen this plant looks a bit different. It's given out this huge leaf, right? You would have seen this in February. And since then it's given out this beautiful big leaf and this sun-stressed leaf over here, which is gorgeous. They both seem to be hardening off still. And yeah, it's just gorgeous. I love the little bit of the burgundy look on it here. And this, I mentioned this, I referred to this in my last video, in that this is the one plant, the one Hoya that I've received that I have not changed the medium, and it's given me these two new leaves immediately. So again, I could tell that Hoya take a while. If you change their medium, they take a while to adjust. But if you don't, which I don't recommend, but if you don't, you do have the pro of having the plant growing a bit faster. But again, it's pushed out these two new leaves and then it's sort of stopped. You know, it has the growth point here, but it hasn't done anything else. It's not pushing out anything else. And it has a little bit of, it looks like it may do something right here, but again, it hasn't done anything yet. So it's sort of paused. I mean, there's water in the reservoir, so I'm not quite sure as to why it paused. It could be it's just taking a break, you know, or it could be because we've had a few cloudy days. Not sure, but my Hoya Carnosa, I believe, Hoya Carnosa Freckles Splash. So again, for my February haul, and since then it has pushed out these two new leaves with lots of splash, lots of freckles, according to the name, but it was a very good specimen to begin with. It has some really nice splashy leaves. And then in my care, so it pushed out these two new leaves and it pushed out this leaf up here and these two leaves here. So it's doing well. Again, just like the Latifolia, it has a growth spurts. So it will push out a bunch of new growth and then it'll sort of slow down a bit. So this one definitely did that. It pushed this out and then kind of stopped for a while. And then now it's pushing this one out and a new growth point, not a new growth point, but it's continuing to grow in here. And then this one, again, it pushed out these two and it sort of stopped. And hopefully soon it'll keep growing. But that's this one here. If you have any tips or any information as to why Hoya do this, if it's something that I'm doing wrong, please let me know. But if you've noticed this and this is normal, I guess all plants do that, right? Let's break it up a little bit and let's pause from all of the Hoya and let's talk about this guy. This is my Syngonium Albo. I got this recently. You would have seen it in one of my haul videos. And this one, if you saw my Instagram photo, it was looking gorgeous, but you know, my hands get itchy. And so I decided to chop it because I want to trigger some more of that high variegation. So I chopped it back to this leaf here. So this leaf has some of the highest variegation. So I chopped it back, and if you can see here, it's pushed out 2 new growth points. So if that leaf gets out the way, there's one, and one on the other side, 2, if you look in here, 2 new growth points here. So hopefully these will have some high variegation. And then the top cut, I've put it back in here, and the top cut had this leaf emerging at the time, and I was scared that I would lose this leaf, but it's fine. It's growing. And then the middle cut, I've put it in here. So hopefully this will push out some new growth from the base here soon. So I have it in semi-hydro, like a self-watering pot in pond, and the roots are coming out the bottom, which is a great sign, and the roots seem to love the water down below. I keep the water a little bit higher than usual so that the cuttings can access the water better. So far so good. This was in my last video, well, not my last one, but my last favorites video, so I'm not going to go into too much depth on this. This is a Hoya Coriacea silver, and yeah, it's still doing well. The leaves look a little bit bigger compared to when you would have last seen them, and the 2 new leaves at the top, you can see them here, and nothing new yet. So again, like what I was saying, like Hoya will push out a bunch of leaves and then take a break. So I mean, 5 new leaves, like, come on, I can't complain. So if it takes a break, that's fine. I mean, if it didn't, that's fine too, but yeah, I think it decided to take a break. So that's the Coriacea silver. Again, not going to go into too much depth. You saw this recently. This is my Hoya Joy splash. What you would have not have seen are these 2 new leaves that are coming in. They're a lot bigger than when you last saw them. So I'm pretty excited about that. And then 2 little leaves here, and then 2 little leaves here at the top. So it's definitely coming along and doing well. So still healthy and doing well. This is Obovata splash, and look at the 2 new leaves I was telling you about. I'm sure you could see them a lot better now compared to that last video, right? They look so good. So hopefully they're nice and big. Globulosa cowdang. Is it cowdang or cowbang? Can't remember. I'll put it on the screen, of course. But again, you would have seen this one recently. It's still hanging in there. Nothing new. Nothing has changed. It still looks the same as how you saw it when you saw it last time. Again, this was the burning that I was telling you about. This Hoya, I've noticed, does not like a whole lot of sun. So I pulled it back a little bit from the window of sun. So I pulled it back a little bit from the window, and it sits on my bedside table here. Also on my bedside table is this guy. You'd remember him. This is my Ring of Fire. It was thriving, and then my cats knocked it over. So I lost quite a few leaves. I think I lost maybe 3 or 4 leaves. Well, it's a small plant. I'm sorry, this is so dusty. I lost 3 or 4 leaves, and to me that's a lot because it's a small plant. But since then, since it fell, it has pushed out this new leaf here. Again, you could see where the physical damage, and then it has pushed out this new leaf here. Stunning. I love the variegation on this plant. And then it's currently working on another leaf in here. So I've been really tempted to just buy a new one because I love this plant so much. I love this plant, and I waited so long to finally buy it, and it broke my heart that it was doing so well and my cat basically broke it. But I'm just going to be patient and wait for it to get through, right? Not just give up on it. Of course, I wasn't going to toss it. I was going to keep them both. But anyways, I need to be patient. And then in here, it has a baby plant growing in here. So again, I've got 2 plants in here. So I just have to be patient. But it's just my excitement to see this plant be big and lush and beautiful, and just get over the damage that it received when it fell. And I'm just going to show you how it all works. So I'm going to push this back here, and here is my Ficus Burgundy. This was in my last video, in my big chop video. This is the plant that I gave that big chop, and look at how it's doing. It's doing well. Lots and lots of new growth coming in. It's pushing from different points. Like, it's on fire. It's doing so well, pushing out a lot of new growth. So the next plant on the chopping block most likely will be my Monstera. So if you want to see that big chop, stay tuned. You would recognize this one from my big chop video. My other Ficus Burgundy, I have two, one on each side of the bed. This is the other one on my husband's side of the bed, and I've given it, like you would have seen, this big chop, and it's got some new growth growing at the top here and so many places along the plant. There's another one down here, some new growth. It pushed out this new leaf already, and it's got another one coming in. I'm also trying to stay on top of the watering with this plant. And for the final room, you're in my bathroom. Here I have another Sansevieria. So this one I've had for a little while. I've had it in too much of a low light situation, and then I underwatered it so you could see where it got crispy. It could have happened when I was away, when I travel. Underwatered it a few times, but it lives in leca, and I just recently watered it. I probably need to add a little bit more, but I think what I also need to do is completely pull everything out, completely empty this out, and take a look at the roots and give it a brand new setup. Here near my tub are all of those cuttings of the Ficus Burgundy that I chopped up. On this side of my tub is a Rhaphidophora. My Rhaphidophora decursiva, I have an entire care video on this plant already on my channel. The care video is pretty much the same. I haven't changed anything. The only thing I want to change is perhaps putting this plant in a self-watering pot, because it's next to a west and south facing window. It does dry out quite quickly. So I would love to repot this and put it in a self-watering pot. But other than that, because as you can see, I'm not staying on top of the watering as well as I should. But overall, it's doing well. The leaves tend to look like this. So what happened is it got leggy, so I chopped it, and then it pushed out this vine here, which is still leggy. But anyways, I won't chop it again. But the new leaves tend to look like this. The younger leaves from, I guess, younger leaves. And then as the plant gets height, or as the branch matures, it pushes out these leaves with lots of slits in them. And it's stunning. I mean, now mine is a bit dusty, but when the leaves are new, like this one, they're so green and glossy. They're gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. And then between my two windows here, between a south and west facing window on top of my tub, is this ficus. This leaf is ready to go bye-bye. Should I pull it? No, I won't. But this leaf is ready to go. But anyways, during the summertime, I put it outside. And if we take a peek in here, it's finally starting to push out some new growth in here on this side. And then any new growth here? Nothing here as yet. You get to see my ladder, and my husband set this up and put the plants to hang on them. And here you would have seen this plant in one of my recent videos, so I won't talk about it too much, but this is a Syngonium treubii moonlight. It's still doing well, got some new growth. And then over here I have Monstera Peru. Should I come on this side? Yeah, I have a Monstera Peru that I've put into, what's it called? Molly's aeroid potting mix, and then I put it in a self-watering pot. And this plant is such a tricky plant. It's so tricky. I have maybe 2 or 3 plants in here. They were all in water, and I don't know. The one that wasn't, one of them is doing really well, so it's growing up the vine. There's a vine here, and it has a new leaf coming out. So I plan on just wrapping it around and continuing it. And then here we have some Tradescantia propagations, another Tradescantia plant hanging here that I'm ready to go with if the first one in the entryway, if it doesn't make it. And then the last plant of this tour, wow, the very, very last plant, I think we've made it, is this one. And this is my Hoya Crimson Queen, Hoya Carnosa Crimson Queen. And loving this plant, I love it. Again, I changed it. I took it out of soil and put it into pond. It took a very long time to acclimate and get used to pond, but I think it's finally making it. It's finally coming around, and it's starting to push out some new growth, and I'm happy about that. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you may enjoy some of my other videos like these over here, and you can easily subscribe by clicking over my shoulder here. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.